Hi, so this video is a little bit different from what I normally put on here. If you've been around here for a while, you might have noticed I've been around quite a few dogs throughout the years. It's a fact that in my entire life, there's been maybe a single year when there wasn't a dog in my home. This includes, like, the time of my birth. Before I was born in 1994, my mother brought a golden retriever puppy home. This is Duke. This was filmed in the early 2000s, and you couldn't have picked a more perfect family dog to grow up with. Duke apparently was the puppy of champion golden retrievers. I think by that they mean like show dogs who had like won probably a few ribbons, but he was never used for anything like that while we had him. He was just such a sweet and gentle pet. I remember he had this stripe of raised fur between his eyes that I used to stroke because it felt extra soft to me. It's funny because from my own memories, I don't remember Duke being anything than a really good boy, but apparently he had a very protective side. There's this story that my older brother always told. Once when he was walking Duke quite late down a dark alley, a large man appeared unexpectedly in front of them. Duke suddenly jumped up and bit this guy on the arm. It was really shocking. Duke was never aggressive with people, but this time for some reason he reacted with the need to protect my brother. My brother got Duke pulled off his arm, and obviously this guy was really mad. He may have shouted some angry words to my brother, and then left, which is kind of crazy lucky for us really. I can't imagine nowadays not getting into major trouble for having a sizable breed like a golden retriever biting someone like that. Fortunately for us, it never happened again. It's just so strange thinking back on it now, because he wasn't a dog that was ever aggressive with people. And after that, he was never aggressive with anyone else, not even the vet. There was another time where Duke pulled my mum over and dragged her across the floor when he got spooked while she was walking him. He was just so strong, but that was definitely accidental on his part. Those two situations were probably the most bad that he'd ever done throughout his life. But to me, he was just a giant cuddly teddy bear. I was a baby when he was a puppy, so for 9 years we literally grew up together. My older sister would end up getting a puppy of her own around 2003, a Jack Russell Terrier called Sparky. He was still around when I started this channel. Sparky and Duke did meet and had a strange relationship. One where they would stand facing each other in the middle of the living room, then one would bark, then the other would bark, then the other, and continue until we had to stop them. No snarling, no baring of teeth, no fighting, just We thought if we left them to it, they would eventually sort themselves out and stop, but nope, if we didn't stop it, it would go on forever. Unfortunately, Sparky and Duke didn't get to spend a lot of time together, because Duke would be diagnosed by a vet with cancer near his heart. We had noticed Duke panting a lot. Even if he hadn't walked, he would be panting as if he'd just ran while lying on the floor. We found out the cancer had grown and was putting pressure on his heart and lungs, which was causing all of his panting. It was inoperable by the time we found it, and the only option to stop his suffering was to put him to sleep. We all went together, me, my mum, my dad, and my brother and my sister, with Duke to the vet. We all took him for one last walk in a nearby field, and stayed with him and pet him in his final moments. Duke was the first pet that I really experienced death with. I'd had goldfish before who had died, and don't get me wrong, I loved those fish and was upset and cried when they passed. But losing a dog is losing something that is much more integrated into your daily life than a fish. He's happy when you return home, he could tell your emotions and give you cuddles and comfort, even when he doesn't understand why. He wants to play with you, and he sees you as his family. So it's impossible not to feel that big gap when they're gone, but at the same time, there was immediately a little dog who started carving out his own space in that gap. My sister's career was progressing, and that meant she had to work more, and she didn't have as much time for Sparky, so to make sure he wasn't left alone a lot, Sparky would end up living with us. Pretty much no gap between one dog and the other. Because times had passed into the era of mobile phones, I have a lot of my own film of Sparky, and he was nothing like Duke. While Duke was chilled, calm, and collected, Sparky was hyper, mischievous, and stubborn. Typical Jack Russell, really. Sparky also had a temper. If he didn't like something, he'd let you know. And there were a lot of things Sparky didn't like. Baths, being towel dried, the Hoover. He also got into the habit of shredding any letters that fell through the letterbox, which, as you can imagine, is not great. I remember this one time, my mum had beat Sparky to the post and he saw her and looked straight in her eyes as she held the letter that got away in her hand. He then turned around and found a leaflet that was hanging off the small living room table edge, and he grabbed that and shredded it instead. You cannot tell me that dog didn't know exactly what he was doing. He was like, I don't care what it is, something is getting shredded today. Yeah, he could be a pretty bad boy. But as well as being more vocal at what he didn't like, he was also more vocal at what he did like. When you came home, he wouldn't just greet you. He'd cry and scream in joy to see you, and then roll over on his back with puppy eyes demanding belly rubs. He could be a very cuddly boy. When it was time for sleep, he'd always be sure to curl up right between your legs, or go under the bedsheet covers and press close to you when it was cold. In the mornings, he'd greet you with dozens of morning kisses right on the face, and follow your face if you tried to move away. He was inescapable. For 3 years, Sparky would be the sole dog of the house, but that would change when my sister would rescue an unwanted puppy, who was the runt of the litter. Rolo, the presumably Staffordshire Bull Terrier crossed with possibly a chocolate Labrador, but we don't really know exactly what he is. And it has to be said, if Sparky and Duke had a non-close relationship, Sparky made it clear he didn't like Rolo. Sparky had gotten too used to being the sole dog of the house. Funny thing is, Sparky got along with other dogs. He could be let off his leash in a field with other dogs and he'd be fine, but apparently not at home. His home was his. Poor Rolo was the most nervous and shyest of boys too, and although their meeting with Rolo as a puppy wasn't great, eventually when Rolo got bigger, they began spending more time together. They could at least be left alone in a room together. And so long as food was given to both of them, things would be fine. In fact, when they were out walking together, you would almost think that they thought that they were brothers. There were occasions where Sparky would wander off in a large field and lose track of us. We tried to call him back to us, just to have Rolo run all the way up to him, and then lead him back to us. Funny how a dog's mind works. A lot of Sparky's life was spent alongside Rolo until a time came where my brother could take Rolo in his home more permanently. Honestly, Sparky was simply happier being the only dog of the house. Sparky was definitely the instigator of being naughty towards Rolo. But they still saw each other afterwards and enjoyed plenty of walks together. I guess in a way, they kind of were like brothers, who just had a limit on how much time they wanted to spend together. Although, to be fair, it was definitely Sparky who set that limit. And so 12 years passed, the two spending and enjoying opening presents in all of those Christmases alongside us. The occasional vet trip, mainly because Sparky sometimes developed dry, itchy skin, a common problem for Jack Russells to experience. Until Sparky's brown face turned grey, he got a little more chubbier, and developed his little old man walk in place of his bouncy run. And then, in 2018, Sparky developed a cough. I don't remember the exact name of the diagnosis, but what I do remember was it wasn't curable. It was sad and painful to watch Sparky struggle with this cough, because it was chronic. It started off just occasional before it got worse and worse and more constant, until it was all the time, every day and night, only stopping when he was able to sleep. And as you can imagine, it's more difficult to sleep when you're coughing all the time. We were given these pills for Sparky that were supposed to numb his throat, making it so that he wouldn't cough as much. Some days were better, and some nights were so much worse. Until finally a day came where he just wasn't getting up anymore. He just laid down and wouldn't move at all, still coughing. We knew then it was time to go to the vet one last time, and on the 15th of January 2019 is when Sparky passed away, aged 16. Exactly the endpoint of a Jack Russell's life expectancy. We had wrapped him up in a blanket in his final moments. He'd had old coats he'd worn when we took him out when it was cold. He always shed little white hairs everywhere, and they remained caught in a lot of stuff after he was gone. As he got older, he also had this old man smell as well that remained in his coat and blanket. I literally didn't want to wash them for a while. Sometimes you just want to keep some parts of him around, just for a little longer. Rolo was living with my brother at this time, so this was the first time in my whole life where my home didn't have a dog in it, and we really felt it. The house was quiet in a way that felt strange. You missed the presence that was always there. It just didn't feel as natural to me to walk around without a dog by my side. Duke and Sparky were very different, and we had missed and cried for Duke when he went, but maybe in some ways Sparky had eased the emptiness by just being there at the time. But now the house really was quiet and it felt very sad. But this time we let it be for a year and enjoyed Rolo's company when we got the chance. That is until... That's for another time though. I'd made this video because I'd been going through all of these memories and old footage, and I think to me it felt really abrupt when I got to the last of showing Sparky, and the fact that it was only relatively recently that I found this really old footage that had Duke on it. Other than that, I'd only had photos really. I guess I wanted to make a proper end for Sparky, looking back at everything I had together with him, and if I was doing that for Sparky, then I couldn't forget Duke. Duke's the first dog that was there at the start of my life, the dog of my very young childhood, who I have much less footage of, but I still wanted to cement his presence in my life in some way. Today I still have some videos left to go with Rolo in them, and my newest edition, Akira, has many adventures to go yet. So for now I wanted to have something here, a tribute to the dogs of my childhood and my adolescence. Because even though losing Duke and Sparky hurt, made me cry and miss them so much, the love and joy of having them in the current moment and looking back really makes it worth it. I don't think there are any real words to describe the joy that a dog gives you.